Welcome to the Curiosity Crisis. We challenge ourselves to explore the world of business, tech, investing, and science. Get curious and be part of the journey as we discuss, challenge, and learn.
Today, we're talking about productivity. We're talking about the different techniques and strategies to get the most done, whether that's at work, studying, or just around the house. And Kush and I have both had a bit of gone into the rabbit hole of productivity throughout our time. And so, we're going to explore some of the things that we've tried and that's worked and some of the downsides to some of them and just talk about what we found the most useful. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Very keen.
Awesome. So let's kick it off with the usual. What's keeping you curious, Kush?
Interesting one this week. I don't know if it's boring, but inflation's keeping me curious. But It's just so funny because I have, classic. You have just lots of chats about, I guess, the cost of things with different people, and it comes up a little bit. It has come up a lot. I've noticed around 2025 and the inflation that we've experienced now, it sort of has flowed through after this last post-COVID period. And I'm curious about how inflation affects the common man, because if you think about like CPI numbers, they're all very centralized back to the government, and then like the average increase in cost of goods and the average cost of like the raw materials and stuff like that increasing. But I think it can't really be captured when like, your coffee goes up by $1. That's actually like a 20% increase in what you were paying before.
Yep.
Or, the same thing with your groceries or just the very, very like day-to-day costs. So I actually would love to understand a little bit more like how it affects, my life, and whether the CPI figure that is produced by, I don't know, the central bank or statistics body is actually what I am paying more. It's just kind of interesting because I've had a lot of chats and everyone's like, oh, it's ridiculous, how much prices have gone up. But
I also think I was learning recently about how the relative cost of different things has changed a lot, which is partially to do with inflation, but also like just the way that the world's evolved. So a good example is like the cost of housing relative to wages now is astronomical. Like houses are extremely expensive, whereas they used to be, maybe like a few years annual salary. Now they're, like 30 years annual salary or whatever. Right. But what's interesting is that luxuries like a TV used to be extremely expensive relative to a salary. And now those things are really cheap. And so often, especially for people who are older, they perceive money being spent like frivolously and like, a bit carelessly. But it's actually, sometimes it's just the perception of things like luxuries that no longer cost the things that they used to. And so it's not just inflation, it's also the way things have moved in terms of costing. But yeah, that's a good one.
Very interesting. What about you? What's keeping you curious?
So currently I'm actually a little bit sick. So if I sound a bit nasally or something, my apologies. But the thing that's been keeping me curious is probiotics. Okay. So, I bought some because I'm currently sick and I just want to get over it as fast as possible. But I've heard conflicting research about probiotics versus prebiotics, and I decided, it's probably not going to hurt, so I'm just going to buy the probiotics anyway. But I'm in the process of trying to uncover how much research there really is for some of these, and how much is just marketing, and hopefully I'll find out soon. But yeah.
That's interesting. We've had a chat before about supplementation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe down the track we'll get a healthcare professional.
I'd love that.
Quiz them. That'd be good.
I think that'd be very, very useful, yeah. So let's get into, some productivity. Do you want to start off with, I guess your history with productivity and what's your first kind of strategy?
Yeah, history-wise, I guess it's just like I've always been busy, kept busy, and I don't know, at some points maybe it was busy for the sake of being busy, but now, with like you and I, we work, we like to keep fit, we do this podcast, so there's a few things on the go, and it's all about like making sure, first of all, that like what you're doing is what you prioritize and what you actually want to do, and you value how you spend the time. So I guess that's been like a journey of refining the prioritization and what I value and how I want to spend my time. But the strategies have just been learnt by working, trying to fit things in, doing uni, doing things just purely out of interest like this.
Yep.
So yeah, that's the journey. But I guess my first one is a little bit counterintuitive, and it can kind of be summed up in knowing when to not be productive and knowing when to actually just switch off and say, you know what, it's fine. I'm going to take tonight off or the next 2 hours off and properly rest or just not be doing the thing, like whether you're sleeping or, for example, when you had uni assignments on and there's always a looming due date, there's always things to do, but just being really conscious about like, no, this is my time to be away from that, not keep my book open, like shut down my laptops, put them away and take the night off. And I think that time for yourself, whether it's like, you know, going to socialize or sleep or doing something fun that you enjoy, like playing the guitar or running or something, really does give you, I think, the fire to come back and get it done in a proper way. Because often when you drag, I've found personally, this is all anecdotal now, but I've found personally when I drag on something for too long and just keep trying to like chip away at it, being like, oh, I should be working on it, you end up doing like, you know, 1 hour's work over 4 hours because you're just like drained and not there. But if you actually just took off the time and be like, yep, no, I'm out, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to think about it, and you come back the next day and that 1 hour you smashed out like 60% of what you wanted to do.
Yeah, so definitely.
Yeah, it's about knowing when you need to take time off and also just prioritizing that with the balance, because if you don't, then you'll burn out really quick. And that's something I've experienced, but yeah.
And I think being smart about it too, right? Like being smart about how much you're going to take off and what you're going to do. Like going for a run, for example, that's going to be like a real boost to when you come back and start working again. But if you go out and like if you do something that feels wasteful as well, it's not necessarily going to, you know, are you staying in the same room or, you know, just on your phone?
Exactly. It's not all the time off is created equal. Like if you stay in the same room, lie in your bed and go on your phone for 2 hours, it's not the same as like actually going out, having a walk with a friend and like seeing the sun and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Yeah, I think it's just being intentional with that. But what's your first one? And what's your history? Yeah,
I guess with history, I've probably read maybe like half a dozen books on this stuff. And one of them I'm going to specifically reference later. But a lot of listeners would have heard of some of them. The Power of Habit is one. Slow Productivity and Deep Work is another. What else? There's been a number of books that I've read about this stuff, and not all of it was useful. But hopefully I get some of the, I guess more anecdotal evidence on what I found. But I guess the big one that I found was the Pomodoro technique. I don't use it as much now, actually, and we'll get into why, but it's essentially a technique where you set timers. So within an hour, 60 minutes, you might set 2 25-minute timers and then 2 5-minute timers. And so you'll do 25 minutes worth of work, 5-minute break, 25 minutes worth of work and a 5-minute break. And it becomes really powerful because you're scheduling in those breaks. And then after you've done a couple of these, you'll get a longer break. And especially if you're really locked in for that 25 minutes, like you were saying about, you know, having rest and doing 1 hour's worth of work in 4 hours. It can also be the other way around, where what might take someone else 4 hours, you can do in 3 of these 25-minute blocks. So I think a lot of it is like really deep focus on the task, and it's really, really powerful. And it depends what you're doing, I think, as well. I found it really useful for studying for exams when I was at university. And I was one of those people, I think we're a little bit different in this. I was one of those all-night people. I'd leave everything to the last minute and then cram everything in a couple of days.
I can't do that. No.
But I found that the Pomodoro technique was really good for studying for exams. But I actually don't use it in my job anymore. Right. So I'm a software engineer and I have to spend time coding. And what I found is that timer can interrupt my flow state, where I'm really locked in and I'm, thinking about all the context of all the code and how everything's piecing together. And when I have that timer go off and I have to come back, it can take me too long to get back up to speed about where I was.
Exactly.
And so often I find actually if I can get in a burst of an hour or an hour and a half or 2 hours even, I can get the same amount done than if I was doing all day Pomodoro technique.
Yeah.
And so I think the big thing here is that it's not always like, not all of these strategies are going to be good for everyone and for all the time. But I did find it, really useful for especially like written tasks. And
Yeah, I can see that. Like, I guess sometimes when I'm doing modeling in my role, like if I had to stop every 20, 25 minutes, it would just not flow through.
Yeah.
Nah, cool. I mean, it's a good one.
This episode is brought to you by Field. 1 in 4 business owners struggle with missed appointments, payment issues, and managing their team. Field fixes this with automation, marketing tools, and all-in-one payment solutions. helping businesses run smoother and even generate passive income. Know a business that could be doing more? Visit field.co, spelled FIELDD.co, to get started for free or chat with their team today. What's your next one?
The second one, I guess it's a form of a very common productivity method, lists, I guess, but my main one is, I call it a list that works. It's whiteboard bingo. So actually, my girlfriend introduced me to this, but essentially you make a bingo board, right? And this is now, like, they're all, I guess, specific, but this is like, I guess, life and a set of to-do things. Like a lot of things that you need to get done, but they're not necessarily absolute day-to-day routine things.
Yeah.
But for example, I use it for, you know, my running goals, my podcast goals, my even just like fun things like calling friends that I've been meaning to check up on, or like boring things like doing tax and stuff like that. So essentially you get like a whiteboard or whatever template and a bingo board. You get bingo in the middle, and then like you fill in the squares with, for me it works to have lots of different things, so not like 24, which is all the squares, or however big you want to do it, not all for one thing, so not all running goals or whatever, but you sort of put the different things that you need on there, and then you check them off as you're doing them. But two specific things that work, why it works for me, I think, is, you might reference it later, but the Atomic Habits book, one of the best things I took out of it is like make the habit or the goal really visible and front of mind. So like this is like in front of my door pretty much as I go in and out of my room. So I see it every day.
Yeah,
I'm seeing these things.
Yeah.
Checking it off also builds momentum. So every time you do it, you're like, oh, goddamn, yeah, a little dopamine hit. And then there's a reward on the side of things. Like you're rewarding good actions, right? You're rewarding your good habits. So then as you hit bingo, you make a reward for yourself. So I don't know, take yourself out for dinner or watch a movie or get a massage. And then you can have like staged ones, so like 3 bingos or like the whole board sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's fun, it's front of mind, it's varied. So it's good for, I think, life sort of admin and goals. So and it's rewarding, I guess, when you tick them off and see them go down. So
that's a good one. Yeah,
it's a list that works.
A list that works, a fun list.
Yeah, 100%.
I like that.
What's your next?
That actually flows pretty well into mine, because you talked about momentum and how, you know, you get to see what happens. So my next one is momentum. So it's getting the little wins, and I have some anecdotal evidence for this. So there's something that some people refer to as the 2-minute rule. Or the 1-minute rule. If it takes less than 2 minutes or 5 minutes, I think the minutes change depending on the person, but if it takes less than some arbitrary amount of minutes and it's a small enough amount, then you should do it now. And the purpose of that is just to it kind of reduces your mental load, because you get the thing done right away. So it could be like send an email. You're like, okay, it doesn't take me that long. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to, focus, write the email and send it. And that's obviously, it's really useful, right? But the bigger thing that I found is the momentum of the day. And so what I found is that the first thing I do in the day can often determine how well my day goes. Yeah. And so for me, that means I don't look at my phone in the mornings. I try not to anyway, especially on a work day. And I try and start work as soon as I can. Because when I wake up in the morning, I'm fresh. There's no like dopamine. There's no, there's nothing going on in my brain, right? I'm just conscious now. And so I try and take advantage of that, so that the first thing I start filling my brain with after I've filled my stomach with some breakfast is the information and the things that I need to get done, so that I'm instantly focused on that. And I find that within the first couple of hours of the morning, I can get so much done, because all I'm doing is focusing on that task, and then I can start to reply to people and look at things and catch up on things. And I find it really, really beneficial. And then it pushes the trajectory of your day, right? Because you're like, look how much I've gotten done. Let me keep this going. Let me keep this up. And so I found it really, really useful. And especially that no phone in the morning thing. So you're not looking at messages. And this isn't going to work for everyone, of course, but I found that really, really useful. Yeah.
So how do you think about, like, so say some people are like real morning people, and they love, exercising in the morning first thing, or going for a walk with their dog, or just like that personal time. So it's not necessarily work productivity. But does that align? Is that what you're saying as well, or is it more work?
I'm not sure because I'm not a morning person. I'm one of those people that finds it really easy to stay up really late. Yeah. But so in the mornings, I'm not one of those people that gets up super early and goes for a run. I find that hard actually. But I mean, I could see that being a good way of starting your day as well, where it's not necessarily that the first thing you've filled your brain with is the information you need to deal with, but you know, maybe for more of a perspective or emotional thing, you've like, I've gone and done something that I've really enjoyed, and now I feel so ready to get into what I need to do. So I think it's almost partially just pushing back that, like, not consumerism, but just the way we consume so much information. Try and front load that with the stuff that you really need to get done in the day, right?
Absolutely. I get that completely. And actually, I don't know if my third and last one is pretty aligned with that. Whereas I don't know necessarily if that would completely work for me just to start work. Cause like some days I love, like, you know, getting up and going for that run, or just seeing the ocean and meditating or something like that. Like I love doing that stuff as well. And I find that leads me to feeling like really not accomplished, but just like calm and relaxed and like happy that something's done. I've done something for myself, because one other thing I do believe in is always do one thing at least for yourself each day. But anyway, very, I guess, similar to yours is it doesn't necessarily have to be first thing, although it is really good when you do it like the first thing in your work day. It's the eat the frog concept, which is essentially just take on the big, dirty, hairy task, and ideally they are things that I'm sure a lot of people have seen the quadrant, but they're things that are very important but not urgent. So the projects that you want to work on, or the things you want to work on that are going to move the needle forward, they're going to progress you, that you're going to learn something from, you're going to get something really, really proper from, but you need to be really intentional and conscious to work on it, because it might be a lot to get into, and it also might be something that you can productively procrastinate on by doing the immediate and urgent firefighting tasks. But being very conscious to make time for the frog, which is like the hard, challenging but really rewarding and long-term thinking oriented task or project. So doing that first, or being very intentional about setting like 2 hours of your day just to purely work on that, blocking it out. And I know that can be easier said than done, but the thing is, the earlier you do it or the more you commit to it, then it feeds into your other one, which is momentum. Because if you make even like noticeable 5% of progress towards your big, hairy, audacious, ambitious target or project or whatever, then you already know you have that in the bag. Then the other stuff, you just feel freer and floatier during the day to get the other stuff done, because you have attacked the big thing that's been gnawing at you. So eating the frog, very important. Easier said than done, but it has to be said because it is very, very important to be conscious about that.
We're just taking a quick break. We'd love it if you did us a favor and gave us a 5-star review on your podcast streaming player. We'd really appreciate it.
I've experienced that in life, actually, in a different scenario. And that was when I was younger. If you went to a theme park, I had kind of developed this, or even like a water park or something, I developed this idea that you should go on the scariest ride first, because as soon as you do that, nothing else at the park's daunting anymore, which means you can enjoy the rest of your day. You don't have to be scared of anything. You just go and enjoy all the rides. So that's funny that's what that is. And what do you do about, breaking up? Because if the task is too big, right, it's not something you can do right away. So then do you break up the frog, I guess, into smaller frogs? Or
100%. Yeah. So like, I guess the first thing usually I do, and I'm working best when I write the next day's key things, so like the frog type material, like the important and impactful tasks down, and then trying to manage it. So if you've got 2 hours and you're going to commit 2 hours to it, what can you get done in that, or at least like chip off like a couple of specific tasks out of it. If it's like, okay, I need to review this paper, I need to make notes on it, and make sure that it's going out to the right people, then you pick a section to go over, or you do a high level skim of the skeleton and see the flow, and you get like a couple of those things that you can tick off again, to know that you've made that progress. So then when you flick back to your book or wherever you note down what you're doing, then you know, okay, that's where I'm at again, and then you take it on from there. It's very much about being specific about the tasks you at least want to start with.
Yeah.
And if you flow from there, then yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, no, thank you. And do you have one or two more?
Yeah, I got one more.
Okay.
And that is association. So, it's really easy for us to, view productivity as like kind of ways around the wall, where the wall is the task you have to get done, and they're just like different ways of trying to skew, like brute forcing something. So you have to do some task and you're almost just obfuscating what you're really doing, right? Like breaking up into smaller things or like trying to, perceive it differently or whatever. And I read this book by Ali Abdul, who used to be a doctor in the UK. He has a really big YouTube channel, and he wrote a book called Feel Good Productivity. And I read through it, and essentially his theme of the book was like, productivity it's about getting the task done, and the best way of doing that in a sustainable way is to try and enjoy the process more. And he goes through all these different things, but the biggest thing that I got out of it, and I've anecdotally have experienced this, is that it's the way that you view the task. It's the association you have with the task. And so the simplest example, and one of the most effective, is playing music while doing something. Lots of people who would experience this, like studying or at work or whatever, is if you can play some music that you enjoy, the task itself is more enjoyable.
Yep.
Now that doesn't work for everything, because not everything you can listen to music for. But there's lots of other ways, like you can make a tea or a coffee, or you can chew some gum, or you can have some other thing that you build up the association with whatever task you're trying to do as just being more positive. And so I think there's obviously the mental side of like how you view it, like try and think of it as like, I get to do this thing and I don't really want to, but that's all right because I'm going to do X that will make it better or more enjoyable.
Yep.
And so I think that, a lot of it is association as well. And because I think one of the most unproductive things you can do is just dread whatever task you're doing and push it away. And then eventually be like, okay, I'm just going to brute force my way through this. And you're just going to hate it. And if you ever have to do it again, it's not going to help, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it's just the association of things.
I get that as well because, like, I don't know, sometimes I used to meal prep, right? And then listen to a podcast where I was learning stuff from, or like an audiobook, and then do it just for pure, macros and like eating really, really solid.
Yeah.
So, like, it was good in a pure productivity sense and like health and convenience and stuff like that. But there's no real enjoyment out of it. There was no love. Like, it was all trying to brute force it. But then, now, like, go to the shops with a friend and cook with a friend, or your partner or whatever, or I listen to music where sometimes I'm keen on an audiobook, but like sometimes I just like listen to music and flow around the kitchen a bit and then like try new recipes for it. Like, you're still doing the same thing and like cost effectively making your meals, but just to change that up has changed the game. And like, I'm doing it more sustainably like most weeks now. So it's really
totally. And it becomes less dependent on your mental state then. Because you've built up this thing that you don't mind doing. You might not love it, but you don't mind it. So
and
it's easier to start.
Right?
Yeah. Ah, awesome.
Epic. I think that's us wrapped. What a great little segment.
Yeah, I hope you got something out of it as a listener, and maybe you can implement some of these. Maybe you can leave a comment on our Spotify or your podcast player about what tips that you use or what you've struggled with. So yeah.
Always. I learned a couple of you then, Luke. I'm definitely going to try this association more because there's a couple of things that I dread, but I could try and make more fun. But yeah, always keen to learn from our listeners, so get in touch.
Thanks for listening. Find us at thecuriositycrisis.com and Curiosity Crisis on Instagram. We're on all major streaming services, so you can listen how you like. We'd like to just ask a quick favor. If you could share this with a friend, your recommendation means a lot. Thanks, and we'll catch you in the next episode.